Alright, magandang gabi everyone, mga pioneers. Nandito tayo ngayon para mag-aral kung ano yung differences between pinagkakaiba ng Web 2 sa Web 3 at titingnan natin kasi hindi naman ako expert dito pero yun, baka may matutunan tayong bago for sure, but as to how much, time will tell, no? Kumusta dyan si Andy in the South sa Iloilo?
Doing fine. It's a bit gloomy here pero wala namang ulan so we're doing well.
Okay, good. How about Rich in the North?
Also doing fine. We have a very sunny weather
Sunny,
as
sunny weather.
usual.
Is it sunny there now tonight?
No, earlier.
Don't get moon burned. Not sunburned. Sige, andito tayo ngayon sa Metro Manila, dito sa, in the outskirts of the metro in Marikina. Guys, tonight, I'm going to introduce ko sa inyo yung very articulate and eloquent Mr. Sherif Abushadi. Ito po siya. Siya yung mag-explain sa atin. Ito yung video na to is taken from the Kerala Blockchain Academy. Nanghiram tayo, magre-react tayo dito at may matutunan tayo. So, share ko ang screen ngayon. Share ko rin yung sound at ito'y titingnan natin. Makita nyo, guys?
Yes.
And conceptual overview. And
Ayun. Sandali. Yan, ito po siya. Yan, si Sherif Abushadi. Very addicted to sa learning, no? Kahit saan to nakatira sa buong mundo. He's being consulted by different organizations around the world. Almost 2 decades of educating. He's passionate about education, consulting, at saka technology. At saka iba't ibang mga big guys din sa Microsoft, Verizon, Home Depot, iba't ibang companies na siguro mga publicly traded ito. Tapos bootcamp instructor din siya. So he's very articulate and he's now the head for education with Near Protocol. So guys, again, just learning, have fun. We can pause the video from time to time. Tapos komentohan natin para matuto tayo and then matuto din yung mga kababayan natin dito sa Pilipinas. Okay, so i-forward lang natin, excerpt lang siya na video, in fact. Here we go.
okay, so let's talk about Near from the web developer's perspective. So web 1, you could say, well, let's start with Web 0. 1960s, 70s, Xerox PARC, the development of networked computers, TCP/IP, things like that. So fast forward a couple of decades later, mid 90s, we have Web 1, where basically we can broadcast information as individuals and businesses. A website for a restaurant menu or some hyperlink documentation or whatever, an index in a search engine that you can use to discover some of this information, but not much of this back and forth. Web 2, then, the social web, where we as individuals can have our own TV stations on YouTube. We have our own Instagram accounts with potentially hundreds of thousands or millions of followers, and we start participating actively in the Web 2. That's the web we're living in now. And Web 3 is the promise of this new place, this space where we have not only the ability to share and engage with one another, but we actually control the information. YouTube can't shut you down if they don't like the content that you're broadcasting, for example. So this Web 3 world is quite interesting, and this is what.
Ayun. Makontrol natin daw yung information sa Web 3, sa Web 2. Medyo wala tayong control beyond our control. Kaya minsan may mga content na nasa-shutdown, I heard minsan kahit yung content mo is not violating a certain policy, pero pwede ka pa rin ma-shutdown because of the nature of the system. What do you have in mind, guys?
I've actually read that Web 2 is kind of Web 3 I mean. It's also called the semantic web, and it's like the website that it's constructed with AI. something we call a artificial intelligence. So
Mm.
parang because the idea was that yung AI that powers Web3 will be a more efficient, uh, parang more efficient, provide better, faster web searches, will better the, it will tailor the, yung if the user wants to search something, usually sa Web2 he's limited to what he types, yung mga keywords that he types on maybe a search engine. Whereas a Web3, with the help of AI, the AI can get tailor to what the user really wants specifically, and not just bring up a list of search results that are closest to the keywords he's typing.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. So, ganun yun. Essentially, sorry. um, let's, Rich, may sasabihin ka ba before tayo mag-proceed dun sa differences talaga ng Web 2 to Web 3?
Well, as Andy says, that Web3, it's kind of an AI. Nagpo-focus siya sa kanyang mga user to be specific, just like search engines nga, like Google. So even we make a typo or accidentally type anything, the AI will automatically fix our typo our typing grammars or typing errors, and that makes it Web3 really efficient and good in the in the web. That's
Hmm.
all.
Yeah, it's too much for me, AI, kasi hindi naman ako talaga ganun ka savvy. Pero, sige, salamat sa inyo ah. Meron pa ba before we...
Well, none.
Sige, salamat.
Shut you down if they don't like the content that you're broadcasting, for example. So this Web3 world is quite interesting, and this is what blockchain technology promises to deliver. So here, just a handful of qualities about this transition. If you hadn't thought about it, there are some similarities and some differences. So if you're a web developer and you're thinking about topology, of course you've heard of client and server. With Web3 now, we involve blockchain. And that adds some new primitives like identity and money that we didn't have in Web 2, certainly not in the way that we have it in Web 3. And app development technology, it's quite similar, actually. You're very likely writing in JavaScript if you're deploying anything to the front end. But on the back end, you might have quite a complicated tech stack in Web 2, whereas in Web 3, the sort of the key differentiator there will be the smart contracts, the contracts that you're writing in Solidity, for example, if you're deploying to Ethereum, or in Rust and assembly script, which is a lot like JavaScript, TypeScript, if you're deploying contracts to Near. So in that sense, the back end where you're controlling business rules, mission critical constraints on your application, those are written in smart contracts and deployed on Near using Rust and assembly script, Rust or assembly script. And of course, you can mix contracts written in both of those languages, have them talking to one another. From a security perspective.
So, ganun pala, no? Yung front end could be the same dun sa client facing, yung sa mga visuals niya. Let's say, yun, JavaScript. Pero in the back end of it, ito yung Rust tsaka assembly script na programming language, which I heard is very easy to use. And then Rust is becoming popular as well. So you don't have to learn complicated or new sophisticated na programming language. It's a backend yung powered by smart contracts. Interesting. Kasi nga, ganun. Rich, from a IT, may comment ka doon?
In the Web3, I think Rust is very a complicated programming language, but it is way safer and secure when it comes to creating applications and finances to make it more secure. And while in assembly script, you can write on JavaScript and and what is the and and just like that, JavaScript makes it very simpler to create applications on Near and others.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So assembly script, simple to learn.
Yes, it's very
Yung
easy to
Rust,
learn. Rust is more complicated, but the make it the application more secured and safer when it comes to finances.
hmm, okay. Yeah. Andy?
I also heard that he mentioned something called smart contracts. I'm guessing these are yung mga applications that
Mm,
are run through this Web3 uh, thing, yung client, which is server plus blockchain. I guess they're blockchain based applications that you could say.
Yes,
Tama. So, yeah.
yes,
And I guess from what I know about blockchain technology, it's anything that is recorded on the blockchain is practically immutable and changeable, making it very secure
mm,
and not easily uh censored if that's the case. So I
yes.
guess yeah, that's the I think one of the advantages of this Web3 and the smart contracts being built using these programming languages.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. At least we're gaining traction here, no? Para unti-unti nating maintindihan itong mga konseptong to kasi kailangan talaga nating i-educate yung sarili natin. So, yun.
Yes,
So awareness ano, of this upcoming, in fact, maybe almost mainstream technology because we heard about
mm,
these cryptocurrencies and other applications. So let's go to the security side, no, para malalaman natin yung differences. Of course, we see it visually, pero let Mr. Sharif expound on it. Here we go.
Perspective. Web 2 and Web 3 are different in that I'm sure you're aware of this, but every time you log into Facebook, Twitter, whatever, you're actually sending your username and password to their servers where someone then has to hash them and check the value of a hashed password in their database to see if that matches. But there is a line of code on all of these services that you and I use where our username and password is available to be printed out to the console, sometimes by accident, into logs or what have you, as plain text. And so to solve that, we have mechanisms like OAuth, where basically some third party vouches for who we are. But again, there's still this exchange of credentials where your secrets leave your computer. They actually go across the wire to some other machine. Not so with Web3, actually. With Web3 and public-private key pairs, these asymmetric key pairs, you're signing your transaction locally. Maybe you don't even know what your password is. Maybe you don't know what your private key is because it's sitting on a ledger or some other hardware security module, some other hardware device. And so in that case, it's very different. You control your username and password, your security credentials, not just in theory, but in sort of a very real practical sense. You may not even know what your private key is when you're signing a transaction. And so these are some of the major differences here. When we talk about security also in terms of services and servers, we have all the same kind of tech stack that we have, AWS, Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud Platform or Azure. But on top of this, we also have this network whose integrity is maintained by some consensus mechanism. So the reason that blockchain is sort of different in that it has these new qualities is really, we could talk about three new technologies that have come together over the last, say, 10, 15.
Yun guys, before niya i-discuss yung consensus na mechanism na may tatlong breakthrough technology that is part of this whole blockchain concept, no? So ano masasabi niyo dun sa accounts? 'Di ba pag yung username at password na lalagay pa rin siya sa central database or server. That makes sense, no? Na hindi natin, kumbaga, within our grasp. Parang we let go of our username and password. Kaya minsan, pag nagba-banking ako, mobile banking, parang natatakot ako eh. Na, alam mo yun, di ba? Kung yung savings account mo, hindi mo alam. Kanina actually, connect ko yung isang isang account ko. Tapos hindi na ma-view yung current na outstanding balance ko. So na-paranoid ako actually. So kasi kailangan ko magpadala ng may padalhan ako ng pera. Nagpanic ako, pumunta ako ng ATM mismo. So yun. What can you say? Anong masabi niyo dun sa asymmetric key pairs compared with the centralized third-party authentication?
Yeah, I personally think that this is why a lot of people, pinupush nila talaga yung Web3. A lot of these developers, because in Web2, there's always yung risk of, your data, your username, your passwords being leaked, for security reasons. Of course, these big companies that handle your data, of course, uh, di naman sila, there's a low positive chance of them doing that outright. But yeah, there's always that risk through leaks, or you can never be too sure of where your data is. Whether it's being shared na pala on maybe on uh, other websites, or your information is being leaked. So there's that's the security risk of Web 2. So with Web 3, I don't they've I think they've managed to, like, to go address that
Mm,
security risk, to go
mm.
make it more secure. Something I'm not really entirely sure of the technology behind this, but yeah, Sharif mentioned public and private keys that even you yourself don't know your private keys, which makes it all the more secure when transacting online, which is, I think, is a real breakthrough in technology.
Okay. Kasi parang computer generated siya na ilang characters yun, mga siguro 20 or 30 na yung particular na transaction lang yan. Yan lang yung parang one-time password niya pero sobrang dami. Right? Is
Yes.
that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Rich, may masasabi ka doon sa accounts?
Um, just like katulad nga po nung sinabi po ni Andy, um, especially if we are creating accounts, merong mga options that log in with Google, log in using our Facebook. We accidentally we give away our information nga. That is the meaning of or open authentication, that we exchange our informations to third party apps, but not without giving away our passwords. They only have our usernames and other information such as name, date of birth, and place, and etc. But it doesn't mean na we have we are not so sure na kung na-exchange ba talaga natin ang passwords natin in these third-party apps. So that common issues is in TikTok that we should avoid using connecting our Facebook or Google account using in TikTok because it is a third-party app. Um, that's the risk in using Web2. And in Web3 naman, it's like you all said that it is more safe and secure nga because it is using Rust, that that our data are being stored safe, and na wala tayong worries na okay lang na iwan lang natin yung funds natin or finances, dahil since hindi nga siya banal, kahit hindi natin tanda yung public and private keys, hindi nila kagad makukuha ito kasi
Okay.
kasi hindi nila kasi kahit mga hackers, di rin nila makukuha kung hindi mo naman ipapakita. Yun lang.
Okay. Pero dun sa Web 2 ba, yung username and password paradigm, pwede yan ma-intercept ng mga sophisticated hackers? Let's say credit card mo or bank account.
No, hindi naman.
Hindi naman ganon.
Hindi.
Pero yung
Hindi ko.
pero yung data mo lang, sinishare.
Data, personal data lang. Such name and date of birth.
How about yung mga activities mo on those social media or sites?
Yes, it is also connected.
Kaya ano.
Yes, that is why we should avoid connecting our Facebook accounts with other third-party apps
Oo.
and other social media accounts as well.
Yung mga cookies na yan.
They also, one of the cause why people are getting hacked because they don't know the risk na what is cookies, what is really cookies. I think cookies are di ba meron pong mga websites na especially if we search articles allow cookies ganon. It is just like
Yeah.
a Trojan virus.
Okay.
It's just a scheme. It's really hard to
I think because
explain.
that's the yeah.
Basta cookies is just a small text of a small text of data that you are being shared.
But again, you're giving up your data, no, sa
Opo.
third party. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go to server. Punta tayo dun para kung meron pa kayong comment or wala na for now.
Wala na.
Dito ako excited kasi yun nga tatlong elements ng technology, no, yung breakthrough.
Yes.
Try natin.
Years, cryptography and public-private key signatures. So that's a major advancements in cryptography, where basically you can make a claim of identity. I approved this transaction or signed this transaction, and that is mathematically defensible. It cannot be faked. With any available technology that we have today, nobody can pretend to be you and sign a transaction with a key that isn't yours, and that's the cryptographic security behind this technology. So that's one of them. The second one is decentralization, and we saw that with distributed systems for sharing files like BitTorrent or Napster or whatever, depending on what your scene was. And in that sense, we have these computers that are, in far-flung reaches of the planet that are communicating together and sharing data to coordinate and make the network work in the way that you expect it to. And then the third technology is this triple ledger technology, where maybe a single ledger is the butcher remembers that you've taken some meat without paying for it last week, and if you don't pay, then they will shame you in the public square. Double ledger technology would be where two companies or maybe two countries keep a balance of accounts, and so they know who owes what, in terms of exports and imports, for example. And triple ledger technology is where you keep a record, I keep a record, and there is a record available in public view, and that's the blockchain view. So these three technologies, cryptography, decentralization, and the triple ledger, come together to make this new system. A big part of this is consensus. That's why I'm talking about it in this context, where you have to find a way for several people who are running these nodes, paying for the electricity, the hardware, the storage, and compute, can maintain the integrity of the network through some sort of incentivized program where maybe they get paid for doing that. That offsets the costs, the operating costs of running these machines. And so any consensus mechanism wants people to agree on the ground truth in the network. What data is true have to be compensated in some way. That's what consensus mechanisms are. And that's a completely new model that Web3 brings to the table. And so the unique...
Okay, so this is like the meaty part of this like game-changing say paradigm, no, if you will. Anong tatlo yun? Naalala nyo? Cryptography.
I don't know. He mentioned something about triple ledger technologies. What I heard.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, triple ledger is pangatlo. Triple eh.
Yung ikalawa.
Decentralization.
Yeah. I also think decentralization and cryptography.
Cryptography.
Yes.
Yung tatlong to pala, ito yung combination ng technology na blockchain kasi cryptography which generates a cryptographic, parang hindi siya ma-crack yung code, no, hindi siya ma-decipher.
Yes.
So ito yung sa asymmetric key siguro sa authentication mo. So ito yun, mathematically, algorithmically, whatchamacallit, na mga mag-generate sila. Number two is decentralization. Hindi siya central, no? Kaya distributed siya sa buong mundo ng mga hardware as a server.
I
Hindi
think you
siya
call it
centralized.
nodes.
Nodes. Yeah,
Nodes.
right. Tama. And then yung pangatlo is yung triple ledger. So walang bias, di ba?
Mm.
Meron kang record. Meron din yung parang middleman. Pero ano siya, code run.
Synced.
Nagsisync sila, tatlo. Synchronized.
So kung hindi mag-agree yung isang part ng ledger, so hindi mag-push through yung transaction, something like that.
Yes. Hindi siya mag-accept. Hindi siya magko-complete.
So yung lahat na ledgers, tama, have to agree with each other for
Yes.
the transaction to push through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Familiar kayo sa Byzantine generals problem?
No.
Ito
Hindi
yung
pa.
ito yung mga may bearing sa ganitong dynamics na tatlo tayo or apat tayo, sino mauuna? So, para like sino yung magbibigay muna? Ayoko din kasi baka ayaw mo eh, hindi mo, 'di ba? Parang like how would I know na mag-go ka, na mag-i-honor mo yung natin. So parang ganun yun. If you can look it up, Byzantine generals dilemma. Tapos game theory, based lahat ng mga algorithms sa mga code daw para may consensus. Parang synchronize lahat na pag nag-go tayo, wala nang, parang kabilaan, alam mo yun, synchronize lahat. So, yun.
Yes.
I would like to comment dun sa sinabi niyang consensus, Kasi inire-reward yung mga tawag doon miners or mga
Yes.
validators.
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 I think validators.
Can you comment on that?
I read an article yung job ng mga nodes, yung mga node operators or yung validators is that parang they share a piece of their equipment, of their CPU or their hard disk drive space to essentially run the network.
Mm-hmm.
And so yung consensus nila is like kind of like an incentive, like
Mm-hmm.
parang what parang a reward you can
Right.
say for running a node or for sharing their CPU or hard drive space. So I guess that's where they earn, you can say,
Mm-hmm.
and that gives them yeah, parang incentive to keep running the network and to maintain it.
Nire-reward sila ng system kasi sila yung parang hardware, they have the computing power, storage,
Yes.
and electricity kasi babayad din yung mga yun eh.
Yes.
So kumbaga, between Andy and I, for us to succeed in our transaction, Rich can be the validator. Titingnan niya ngayon, basing on his like hardware designed for say being a node. Tapos
Yes.
niya, i-store niya yung data natin. So magbabayad siya ng electricity, ng hardware niya, binibili niya, mini-maintain niya para sa
Yes.
storage. yung computing power niya. Tapos i-reward siya ng system, no?
Yes,
At hindi,
exactly.
at hindi lang siya. Marami pang iba nag-validate.
Yes,
Tama?
yes,
That's what makes it decentralized pala.
yes,
Yun. So instead, sila yung nag-replace siguro dito sa mga centralized third party na Amazon Web Service, Google Cloud,
So,
na.
parang wala nang middleman.
Yeah. So lahat na distributed kung sino yung nire-reward siguro na kung sino yung pinaka ito ang proof of work, proof of stake.
opo, yan po.
Yun. Okay. Okay. At least we're learning here. No? So yeah, I think this is the last part, yung pinaka bottom line, no? Key performance. Yeah, are you ready, guys? Unless you
Yes,
want to say something else before we proceed.
no,
All right, here we go.
Selling proposition here are the key performance of these. In Web 2, we're used to fast, cheap data as being native. You can move data anywhere, anytime, and you have very advanced, flexible services like Amazon S3, for example, where you can basically put anything, anytime, for as long as you want. Where in Web3, some of the new primitives would be things like the fact that it's unassailable, permanent identity and truth, as well. Then on top of that truth, we can layer trust because we believe in that truth, because it's incentivized truth, effectively. And on top of that trust, we layer things we care about, like identity, money, businesses, transactions, finance, and so on. So that's kind of the big shift. If you're coming from Web 2 as a web developer, this is the first time you're seeing anything about blockchain technology. Hopefully this gives you some framing that helps you make sense of what's happening and why this is a seismic shift, a major shift in the way people are thinking about this technology.
Ayun. Before tayo mag-proceed dito, of all the blockchain protocols, baka i-discuss natin ito next time. Pero, yun nga, comment natin dito sa huli. Seismic shift talaga, no? Kumbaga game changer siya talaga. Parang like totally overhauled na the way things are being conducted, no? What can you guys say on the last part?
So, basically, from what I understood, yung sinasabi ni Sharif is that due to the security of this Web3, na parang the trust, we can trust Web3, we can trust this new technology. With that trust, we can put in things that we care about na, or things that we value in essence. So, that's why there's a lot of money, now you can say, cryptocurrency in this uh, in blockchain technologies, basically due to their uh, being unchangeable, secure, and uh, I guess open, para makita ng lahat yung transactions that are taking place, something like that.
Yeah. Yung trust nandun. Pinagkakatiwalaan nating lahat yung system na yon. Kaya doon na papatong yung we can bet our like whatever value, whether that's non-fungible tokens or your identity, your money, because it's recognized universally by the system.
Yes.
Rich?
Um, Web 2 and Web 3 becomes a good combination when it comes to fast transaction and good security in the blockchain and the ecosystem. Because um, we can leave our data and information, of course, our finances, without getting in trouble or hacked na, because it is more safe and trusted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So lahat no nag-agree. Safe. Feel safe kung lahat may trust doon sa system. Right. How much time do we have, D? How long have we gone?
I think we've gone well over 25 minutes, I guess.
Wow, it's quite long. yeah, but anyways, I think we've learned something. Any final thoughts before we conclude?
None.
None for me too, but I
None from me.
really
I really
like,
enjoyed learning here.
yeah, how he presented the information to newbies like us.
Yeah, I know. And I hope na may mga matututo din dito no sa video natin na ginawa ngayon. But essentially, to wrap it all up, parang the new technology kasi is addressing a certain need na yung current na provider or system mo may not be serving you anymore, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
or
like,
there's a risk of the
yeah,
current provider abusing your abusing that
information.
your data.
Indeed.
yeah. So when you have that feeling of discontent sa current mo na state, you want to find some other solutions, no? Based sa mga need mo. And then ito yung what we are seeing right now unfolding. Yeah. So when it comes to educating ourselves, marami pa tayong matutunan. Kumbaga, marami pa tayong kakainin bigas. Kaya mag-only rice ka na. Yeah. Sige. So yun lang for now. Guys, if you're listening or watching, stay tuned. We're gonna learn more about blockchain and ano yung relevance nito sa daily life natin eventually. This is not an overnight na learning na download, no? Hindi ito sprint pero ito'y marathon. It's like a hackathon. Hackathon parang sprint eh. A few short bursts. Pero
Yeah.
sige. Yeah, thank you pioneers and hope na um, matututo pa tayo sa mga further na mga lessons especially with Sharif. Okay guys, salamat sa inyo and talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.